There's a diner in Cleveland, Ohio. Nothing fancy. Torn vinyl booths, coffee that's been sitting too long. The kind of place where the waitresses know your order before you sit down. In 2003, a 61-year-old woman named Betty worked there. She'd been a waitress for 38 years. Minimum wage plus tips. Living paycheck to paycheck. Raising 3 kids on her own after her husband died. And then one day, an 18-year-old rookie walked in. He was polite, said please and thank you, looked her in the eye, and when he left, he put a $100 bill on the table. That rookie was LeBron James. For the next 20 years, every time LeBron came to that diner, Betty served him. And every tip he left, every single dollar, she put in a glass jar and never touched it. In 2023, when LeBron walked back into that diner with his son Bronny, Betty was waiting for him with that jar and 20 years of tips inside. What she did with that money will make you cry. And what LeBron did when he found out. That's the part that changes everything. This is Betty's story, and it's about a lot more than basketball. Betty's life before LeBron. Betty Thompson was 61 years old in the summer of 2003. She'd been a waitress at Rosie's Diner in Cleveland for 38 years, since she was 23. Let me tell you what 38 years of waitressing does to a person. To a person, your feet hurt, always. Even when you're sleeping, they throb. Your back aches from carrying trays that are too heavy. Your hands shake from decades of lifting hot plates. Your smile is automatic, you don't even realize you're doing it anymore. Betty had raised 3 children on waitress wages. Her husband Richard died in 1987, a factory accident, no life insurance, just bills, and 3 kids who needed food, clothes, school supplies. So Betty worked, double shifts, holidays, weekends, whatever it took. By 2003, her kids were grown. Her daughter Sarah was a nurse. Her son Marcus was a teacher. Her youngest Tommy was in the army. Betty was proud of them, but she was also tired. Bone tired. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. She'd saved $127 in her entire life. That was it, almost 4 decades of work, and that's all she had to show for it. But Betty didn't complain. She just showed up, smiled at customers, poured coffee, took orders, repeated. You know a Betty, don't you? Maybe it's your mom, your grandmother, that teacher who stayed late, that neighbor who checked on you. Someone who worked hard their whole life and never asked for recognition. If this story is making you think of them, hit that subscribe button. Because we tell stories that honor people like Betty, the ones who changed the world quietly. The day everything changed. June 26, 2003. It was a Thursday. Betty was working the lunch shift. The diner was half empty. It usually was on weekday afternoons. A few regulars at the counter, a couple in booth 3. That was it. Then the bell above the door chimed. A young man walked in. Tall, really tall. Had to be at least 6'8". Skinny, wearing a Cavaliers hat and a plain white t-shirt. Betty grabbed a menu and walked over. Just you today, honey? Yes, ma'am, he said. Looked her right in the eye when he said it. Most teenagers didn't do that anymore. Sit anywhere you like. He chose booth 7, by the window. Betty noticed he was looking around the diner like he was memorizing it, taking it all in. She gave him a minute, then came back with water and a notepad. Know what you want, or need a minute? I'll take a cheeseburger, fries, and a Coke, please. How do you want that burger? Medium, please. And ma'am, could I get extra pickles? Of course, sweetheart. Betty wrote it down, headed back to the kitchen. She didn't know who he was, didn't recognize him. To her, he was just another customer. Now, before we go further, let me tell you what else happened on June 26, 2003. That was the day of the NBA draft. That morning, LeBron James was selected first overall by the Cleveland Cavaliers. The entire city was buzzing. Sports radio was going crazy. Everyone was talking about the chosen one coming to save Cleveland basketball. But Betty didn't follow basketball. She worked during games. She didn't have cable TV. Sports were something she heard about secondhand from customers. So when this tall, polite kid sat in her booth asking for extra pickles, she had no idea she was serving the most famous teenager in America. And that's what made everything that followed so beautiful. The first tip, plop. Betty brought the food out 15 minutes later. The burger was huge. Rosie's was known for their portions. The fries were hot and crispy. There you go, honey. Need anything else? No, ma'am. This is perfect. Thank you. You just holler if you need me. The young man ate slowly. Betty noticed he kept looking out the window, not at his phone. He barely touched it, just looking, thinking. After about 30 minutes, he finished, wiped his mouth with a napkin, stacked his plates. Betty appreciated that most customers didn't. He waved her over. Can I get the check, please? Of course, sweetheart. The meal was $8.75. Betty handed him the slip. He pulled out his wallet, put down a 20. Keep the change. Betty started calculating the change in her head. 11.25. That was a generous tip, more than she usually got. But then the young man did something that stopped her cold. He pulled out more cash, 4 more 20s, and a 50. Put it all on the table. Ma'am, he said quietly, thank you for treating me like a regular person today. That's rare right now. Betty stared at the money. That was $130 in tips, on an 8.75 meal. Honey, I can't take this. This is too much. Please, he said, and there was something in his voice, something vulnerable. Please take it. You called me honey and sweetheart. You looked me in the eye. You didn't ask for an autograph or a picture. You just treated me like a person. That meant everything to me today. Betty's eyes filled with tears. She didn't know why this mattered so much to him, but she could see it did. Okay, she said softly. Thank you. No, ma'am. Thank you. He stood up, had to duck slightly to avoid hitting his head on the light fixture, and he walked out. Betty stood there, holding $130 in cash, watching him leave. A regular customer at the counter, Ray, who never missed a Cavs game, called out, Betty, do you know who that was? No. Who? That was LeBron James, first pick in the draft this morning. He's going to be a superstar. Betty looked at the money in her hand, looked at the door, and made a decision that would change her life. Starting the collection. That night, Betty went home to her small apartment. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. The wallpaper was peeling in the kitchen, but she couldn't afford to fix it. She sat at her kitchen table with the $130 in front of her. She needed that money. Her electric bill was due. Her car needed new brakes. She could have used every penny of it. But something stopped her. That boy, LeBron. He'd said she made him feel like a regular person. In a world that was about to treat him like a god, she'd given him one moment of normalcy. And something about that felt sacred. Betty got up, went to her cupboard, and pulled out an empty pickle jar. She washed it out, dried it, wrote on it with a Sharpie, LeBron's tips, don't touch. She put all $130 inside. She didn't know why. She couldn't explain it if you asked. It just felt right. If he comes back, she told herself, I'll save every tip, and someday, if he ever needs it, I'll give it back to him. The second visit. LeBron came back 3 weeks later. Same booth. Booth 7. Same order, cheeseburger, medium, extra pickles, fries, Coke. Betty smiled when she saw him. Welcome back, sweetheart. Hi, Miss Betty, he said. She blinked. You remember my name? Of course. You're the first person in Cleveland who made me feel at home. This time, when he left, he put down a $100 bill as a tip. Betty didn't argue. She just said, thank you, honey. That night, that 100 went into the jar. The routine begins. LeBron came to Rosie's diner once or twice a month that first year. Always the same booth. Always polite. Always a huge tip. Sometimes $50. Sometimes $200. One time, after his first big Nike check cleared, $500. And every single dollar went into Betty's jar. By the end of LeBron's rookie season, there was $247 in that jar. Betty's coworkers noticed. Betty, why don't you spend that money? You could pay off your car. It's not mine to spend, she'd say. But he gave it to you. He gave it to me to hold. There's a difference. Her daughter Sarah was more direct. Mom, that's your money. You earned it. Use it for yourself for once in your life. But Betty couldn't. She'd look at that jar and think about the look in LeBron's eyes that first day, the gratitude for being treated normally. And she'd decided, This money is his. I'm just keeping it safe. Now, you might be wondering, why didn't Betty just tell LeBron she was saving his tips? Because she was afraid. Afraid he'd feel obligated to keep tipping big. Afraid he'd think she was trying to manipulate him. Afraid it would ruin the one thing that made their relationship special. It was genuine. So she kept it secret. Just her and the jar. And every time LeBron walked through that door, Betty served him with a smile, treated him like her grandson, and added his tip to a collection that was growing into something neither of them could have predicted. The years go by, 2003, 2010. The jar kept growing. $5,923 total. 2005, $947 total. 2006, $13,909 total. LeBron's first finals run. He came to the diner the day after they lost, and Betty didn't mention basketball at all. She just served him pie and let him sit in silence. 2007, $18 total, $34 total. 2008, 22 Bockers, 10.9 Tyven. Total. 2009, $2,000, $445 total. LeBron won his first MVP. 31.10, $31 total, unsen $809 total. In July 2010, LeBron announced the decision. He was leaving Cleveland for Miami. Betty watched it on the small TV in the diner. She saw the anger from fans, the burning jerseys, the hatred. She cried that night. Not because LeBron left, but because she knew people would treat him differently now. The same people who cheered for him would now curse his name. A week later, LeBron came to the diner, late at night, wearing a hood, sunglasses. He sat in booth 7. Betty walked over. "Your usual, honey." He looked up at her. Eyes red. He'd been crying. "You're not mad at me?" "Mad at you? Why would I be mad at you?" "For leaving." Betty sat down across from him, something she never did with customers. "Sweetheart, you don't owe me anything. You don't owe Cleveland anything. You did what was best for you. That's called being smart. Everyone hates me." "Not everyone," Betty said firmly. "I don't. And the people who truly know you, they don't either." LeBron broke down. Right there in booth 7. This 25-year-old man, MVP, superstar legend, cried like a child. Betty reached across the table and held his hand. Didn't say anything. Just held his hand until he stopped crying. When he left that night, he put down $1,000 as a tip. Betty added it to the jar. Total, $32,890. The gap is gap. For 4 years, LeBron didn't come back to Rosie's diner. He was in Miami, building a dynasty, winning championships. Betty kept working, getting older. Her feet hurt worse now. Her back was constant pain, but she showed up every day. The jar sat in her kitchen cupboard, untouched. Coworkers asked, "Are you still saving that money?" "Yes, but he's not even in Cleveland anymore." "Doesn't matter, it's still his." By 2014, Betty was 72 years old. She'd been a waitress for 49 years. The diner's owner, Jim, pulled her aside one day. "Betty, you should retire. You've earned it." "Can't afford to retire, Jim." "But your kids." "My kids have their own families to support. I'm not going to be a burden." The truth was, Betty had medical bills. A small heart attack in 2012 had wiped out most of her savings. She was back to living paycheck to paycheck. But that jar, still untouched. $32,809 sitting in her kitchen, and she wouldn't take a dime. Let me stop here and tell you about loyalty. Real loyalty isn't about blind devotion. It's not about never being disappointed. Real loyalty is about commitment in the absence of convenience. Betty could have spent that money. Nobody would have blamed her. LeBron had left Cleveland. He probably didn't even remember her anymore. But Betty remembered her promise to herself. This money is his. I'm keeping it safe. And so she did. Even when it hurt. Even when she needed it. Even when it would have made her life easier. Because that's what real loyalty looks like. The reunion, July 2014. July 11, 2014. Betty was working the morning shift when she heard the news on the diner's radio. LeBron James is returning to Cleveland. Betty dropped the coffee pot she was holding. It shattered on the floor. "Betty," Jim ran over. "Are you okay?" He's coming home, Betty whispered. 2 weeks later, the bell above the door chimed. LeBron walked in, older now, 29 years old, 4 years older, wiser, humbled, and he looked right at Betty. "Hi, Miss Betty." Betty's eyes filled with tears. "Welcome home, sweetheart. I missed you." "I missed you too, honey." He sat in booth 7. Betty didn't even ask. She just brought him his usual cheeseburger, medium, extra pickles, fries, Coke. When he finished, he left $500 on the table. Betty picked it up, held it, and something broke inside her. She walked over to him just as he was about to leave. "LeBron?" "Yes, ma'am?" "Can you wait here for 5 minutes? I need to get something from home. I live 2 blocks away." He looked confused, but nodded. "Of course." Betty ran. At 72 years old, she ran those 2 blocks, grabbed the jar from her kitchen, ran back. She was out of breath when she returned, wheezing. Jim was worried, but Betty waved him off. She walked over to booth 7, set the jar on the table. LeBron stared at it. "What is this?" "Every tip you ever gave me," Betty said. 11 years worth, $33,039. I saved every penny. LeBron's face went white. "Well, Betty, why?" "Because that first day, you said I made you feel like a regular person, and I realized, if you ever needed to feel that way again, if you ever needed to remember that someone believed in you when you were just an 18-year-old kid, this money would be proof." LeBron was shaking. "Betty, that's your money. I gave it to you." "You gave it to me to hold," Betty interrupted gently. "Now I'm giving it back." "I don't need it," LeBron said, tears running down his face. "I know," Betty smiled, "but maybe there's someone else who does. Someone like I was when you first met me. Someone working hard. Someone who needs a reminder that kindness matters." LeBron couldn't speak. He just hugged Betty. This 6'8" global superstar hugging a 72-year-old waitress in a rundown diner in Cleveland. And everyone in the diner was crying. The foundation, the Młody one R1 was hålla Chidivos for the Hadron Pier. 2 days later, LeBron called Betty, asked if she'd meet him at his office. Betty took the bus. She'd never been to LeBron's office before. It was huge, modern, glass and steel. She felt out of place in her waitress uniform. LeBron's assistant walked her to a conference room. LeBron was there. So were 4 other people Betty didn't recognize. "Miss Betty, thank you for coming," LeBron said. "These are my advisors. I wanted you here because you're about to help me change lives." He opened a folder. Inside were plans, architectural drawings, budgets, mission statements. "I'm starting a foundation," LeBron explained. "The LeBron James Family Foundation. Our mission is to help kids in Akron and Cleveland who are growing up like I did. Single-parent households, low income, kids who need someone to believe in them." Betty nodded, not understanding why she was there. "And Betty, I'm using your jar money as the seed funding." Betty gasped. "LeBron, that's not enough to start a foundation." "It's not about the amount," LeBron interrupted. "It's about what it represents. You saved for 11 years. You sacrificed. You believed. That's what this foundation is about, believing in people even when it's hard." He slid a paper across the table. "We're calling this the Betty Thompson Scholarship Fund. Every year, we'll give scholarships to kids whose parents work minimum wage jobs, waitresses, janitors, factory workers, people like your kids, people like you." Betty started crying. "LeBron, it's not enough," LeBron said, voice cracking. "It'll never be enough to repay what you taught me. But it's a start. The IPromiseSchool." Over the next 4 years, LeBron's foundation grew. The Betty Thompson Scholarship Fund gave out $1.2 million in scholarships to 847 students. But LeBron wanted to do more. In 2018, he opened the IPromiseSchool in Akron, a public school for at-risk kids. Free tuition, free meals, free transportation, free college tuition, guaranteed for every graduate. At the opening ceremony, LeBron gave a speech. Thousands of people were there. Media, celebrities, politicians, and in the front row, sitting in a place of honor, was Betty. LeBron paused his speech, looked right at her. "There's a woman here today who taught me the most important lesson of my life," he said. "She taught me that kindness isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up every day, treating people with dignity, believing in them, even when they can't believe in themselves." Betty Thompson was my waitress, and for 11 years she saved every tip I gave her, not because she wanted recognition, but because she believed that kindness should be protected and paid forward. This school exists because of people like Betty. People who work hard, who sacrifice, who never give up. This is for them. This is for you, Miss Betty. Betty was sobbing. The entire audience gave her a standing ovation. After the ceremony, a reporter asked Betty, "How does it feel to know you inspired all of this?" Betty smiled. "Honey, I didn't inspire anything. I just treated a young man the way everyone deserves to be treated, with kindness. Here's the thing about kindness. You never know how far it will travel." Betty poured coffee and called a teenager sweetheart in 2003. 15 years later, that teenager built a school that's changing thousands of lives, all because someone made him feel like he mattered when he was nobody special yet. That's the power of treating people with dignity. It compounds, it grows, it echoes through time. And Betty's story was about to echo even further. Retirement. In 2019, Betty finally retired. She was 77 years old. She'd been a waitress for 54 years. LeBron threw her a retirement party at Rosie's Diner. Invited all her regular customers, her kids, her grandchildren. He gave her a gift, a check for $500,000. Betty tried to refuse it. "LeBron, no. This is too much." "Betty, it's not enough. You gave me something I couldn't buy with any amount of money. You gave me dignity. Let me give you security." With that money, Betty paid off her apartment, helped her daughter buy a house, set up college funds for her grandchildren, and donated $100,000 to Rosie's Diner to renovate the place. In early 2023, Betty was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months. She was 81 years old. She'd lived a full life. She was ready. But before she died, there was one thing she wanted to do. She called LeBron. "Honey, can you come visit me and bring Bronny?" "Of course, Miss Betty." "When?" "Soon, sweetheart. It needs to be soon." The final meeting. LeBron and Bronny arrived at Betty's apartment 3 days later. Betty was frail, thin, but her eyes still sparkled when she saw them. "Miss Betty," LeBron said, voice breaking, "I'm so sorry." "Don't you dare apologize for me dying," Betty interrupted with a weak smile. "I've had a wonderful life, largely thanks to you." She gestured to Bronny. "Come here, young man." Bronny approached, shy. He was 18, the same age LeBron had been when he first met Betty. "Do you know why I asked you here?" Betty asked. "No, ma'am," Bronny said. Betty pulled out an envelope from under her pillow. "Your father changed my life by being kind to a stranger. Now I'm asking you to do the same." She handed him the envelope. Inside is a letter, instructions, and $50,000. "That's the last of the money your father gave me. I want you to start your own scholarship fund, not with your father's money, with money that was meant for changing lives." Bronny's eyes widened. "Miss Betty, I can't." "Yes, you can," Betty said firmly. "Kindness isn't inherited, it's chosen. Every generation has to choose it for themselves. I'm asking you to choose it." Bronny looked at his father. LeBron was crying. "Okay," Bronny whispered. "I promise." Betty smiled. "Good boy." She looked at LeBron. "Can you do me a favor?" "Anything." "The next time you go to a diner and some waitress calls you honey and treats you like a regular person, leave her a big tip. Not because you're rich, but because kindness deserves kindness." "I will," LeBron promised. "Good," Betty said. She was getting tired. "Now both of you, come here." They leaned in. Betty put a hand on each of their faces. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for letting me be part of your story." "No," LeBron said through tears. "Thank you for being the best part of mine." Betty died 6 days later, April 14th, 2023, surrounded by her children, grandchildren, and a lifetime of love. The funeral of Betty. LeBron spoke at Betty's funeral. So did her children. So did hundreds of people whose lives she'd touched. Former customers, scholarship recipients, kids from the IPromiseSchool. But the moment everyone remembers was when Bronny stood up. "I only met Miss Betty once," he said, "but she changed my life in that one meeting. She taught me that kindness isn't about what you have, it's about what you give. and she trusted me, a kid she barely knew, to carry that forward. So here's my promise to Miss Betty. I'm starting the Betty Thompson Youth Fund. Every year, I'll give $50,000 to young people starting their own businesses or charities, people who want to make a difference but need a little help getting started. Miss Betty saved tips for 20 years so kindness could continue. I'm going to make sure it does. The entire church erupted in applause. What happened to the jar? After the funeral, Betty's daughter Sarah approached LeBron. My mom wanted you to have this, she said, handing him the original pickle jar. It was empty now, but written on it in Betty's handwriting, LeBron's tips, don't touch. Because kindness should be protected until it's ready to change the world. LeBron keeps that jar in his office. When people ask about it, he tells them Betty's story. And every single person who hears it leaves different. The ripple effect. As of today, the Betty Thompson Scholarship Fund has given out $8.4 million to 3,200 students. The IPromiseSchool has graduated 847 students, 100% graduation rate, all with guaranteed college tuition. Bronny's Betty Thompson Youth Fund has funded 127 young entrepreneurs and changemakers, all because a 61-year-old waitress treated an 18-year-old kid with kindness in 2003. All because she saved every tip, all because she believed that kindness should be protected and paid forward. This is a fictional story. Betty Thompson isn't real. The pickle jar doesn't exist. But the lesson, that's real. Kindness compounds. Every time you treat someone with dignity, you're planting a seed. You don't know what will grow from it. You don't know how far it will travel. It will travel. It will compound. It will echo through time. Betty's story is fictional, but there are real Bettys out there. Waitresses, janitors, teachers, nurses, people working hard, living paycheck to paycheck, but still choosing kindness. And there are real LeBrons too. Not famous, not rich, just people who remember when someone was kind to them and who choose to pay it forward. This story is a reminder. Your kindness matters, even when you don't see the results, even when it feels small. Someone is collecting your kindness in a jar, and someday, when the time is right, they'll use it to change the world. So be kind, always. You never know whose life you're saving. If this story touched you, do something about it. The next time you see a waitress, a cashier, a janitor, someone working a hard job for low pay, treat them with extra kindness. Look them in the eye, say thank you, mean it. Leave a big tip if you can. Not because you're trying to be a hero, but because kindness compounds. And if you're someone who's struggling right now, working hard, barely getting by, wondering if it matters, know this: it matters. Your work matters. Your kindness matters. You're planting seeds you may never see grow, but they will grow. Someone is going to remember you. Someone is going to be changed by you. Someone is going to look back on their life and say, there was this person who was kind to me when I needed it most. Be that person.